Welcome to your channel, Night Vale Stories. Jane had just moved into her new apartment, an old building with white walls and creaking floors. She set down her boxes and looked around. The place was empty, almost too empty. As she unpacked, her eyes kept drifting to the large full-length mirror leaning against the wall in the living room. At first, she thought she imagined it, but then she saw her own reflection standing still while she was unpacking a box nearby. Panic rose in her chest. The reflection smiled, but it wasn't Jane's smile. It was cold, cruel, and alive. Jane stepped closer, trying to shake the fear. "This is impossible," she whispered. Yet the reflection moved differently, tilting its head in a mocking way. She reached out to touch the glass, but her reflection didn't move her hand. Her heart thumped loudly as she realized this wasn't her reflection. The lights flickered, shadows stretching unnaturally across the floor. Each shadow seemed to move independently, reaching toward her. She backed away, but the mirror seemed to pull her in, calling her name softly. That night, Jane tried to sleep, but every sound in the apartment felt amplified. Footsteps echoed when there was no one there. The mirror in the hallway glimmered in the darkness, and she swore she saw the double move behind the glass when she blinked. She covered her face with the blanket, her mind racing, wondering if she was losing her sanity or if something much darker had followed her into this apartment. The air felt heavy, almost alive, pressing down on her chest. Her reflection smiled again, taunting, waiting. And Jane knew that whatever had mirrored her, it was only the beginning. Jane couldn't sleep that night. Every creak of the old apartment sounded like footsteps creeping closer. She tried to tell herself it was just her imagination, but her eyes kept darting to the mirrors around the apartment. In the hallway mirror, she saw it again, her double, standing perfectly still, staring back with a mocking grin. Her pulse raced. The reflection moved differently than her. It tapped its fingers on the mirror frame, shifted its weight, as if waiting for her to notice. Panicked, Jane fled to the kitchen, flipping on the light. Her heart stopped. Across the room, by the refrigerator, her copy was there, perfectly imitating her movements, mimicking her breathing, smiling cruelly. She spun around, and it vanished, but then appeared behind her in the living room mirror. She ran from room to room, the apartment twisting strangely, hallways longer than they should be, doors leading to rooms she didn't remember. Her double followed silently, always just out of reach, reflecting every fear she had. Whispered voices filled the corners of the apartment, repeating her name, mocking her. Jane realized in horror that the apartment was no longer safe. Her reflection was no longer confined to glass, it was hunting her. Jane tried to leave the apartment. She grabbed the doorknob, locked. She tugged harder. Nothing. Panic took over. She ran back into the living room, glancing at the mirrors. Her double wasn't just behind the glass anymore. It was everywhere. Every reflective surface, mirror, window, even the metallic fridge door showed her sinister copy, smiling, tilting its head, whispering her name softly. She screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the thick, heavy air. The lights flickered violently. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls, coiling like snakes, reaching toward her. Jane stumbled backward into the bedroom. There, in the full-length mirror, her copy stepped forward slowly, moving impossibly, limbs bending in unnatural ways. Jane's reflection began stepping out of the mirrors, emerging into the room piece by piece, each fragment twisting reality around her. Fear turned into horror as Jane realized the apartment itself had become a trap, a labyrinth controlled by the doppelgänger. Every room she entered, every shadow she passed, the copy was there, waiting, smiling, always one step ahead. The walls themselves seemed alive, closing in, mocking her. Escape was no longer an option, it was already too late. Jane could no longer run. Her apartment had transformed into a twisted labyrinth of shadows and mirrors. She stood in front of the largest mirror, trembling, and shouted, "Who are you?" Her voice echoed, bouncing off every reflective surface. The double tilted its head, perfectly mimicking her words, but the grin was cruel, mocking. The room seemed to stretch and twist as though reality itself had been bent by her doppelganger. Objects began to float, books, chairs, even her boxes spun through the air. The shadows grew longer, darker, reaching for her. Jane's fear turned into desperate courage. With trembling hands, she grabbed a heavy chair and smashed the mirror. Glass shattered, scattering fragments everywhere, each reflecting infinite copies of herself. But her copy did not shatter. Instead, it laughed, a chilling sound that echoed endlessly, and stepped out of the broken shards. Jane realized that this confrontation had not freed her, her double had gained power, and now it moved freely in her reality. Every corner of the apartment seemed alive, every reflection a potential threat. She knew that to survive, she would have to face this dark version of herself or be consumed entirely. Jane ran through the apartment, heart hammering, shadows clawing at her from every corner. Her reflection appeared in every mirror, sometimes a step ahead, sometimes behind, always watching, always smiling. The apartment had become a labyrinth with endless hallways, doors that led nowhere, rooms that changed while she ran. She reached the exit and pulled the door open, but instead of the hallway, she saw an infinite corridor, stretching endlessly, lined with mirrors. Her double appeared behind her, smiling with cruel satisfaction, whispering her name softly. Jane screamed, turning to face it, but every reflection multiplied, surrounding her, mimicking her fear. There was no escape. The apartment, the mirrors, the shadows, they were all one now, a trap with no exit. Her heart raced, her breaths shallow. In the last moment, she glanced at her own face, and it smiled back at her, cold, detached, cruel. Darkness swallowed everything, and Jane's scream faded into the reflections, leaving nothing but the sinister grin of the doppelganger. The apartment waited silently for its next victim.